If you're enjoying this introduction to Revit, make sure you check out the full beginner to advanced level course on my website s15studio.com. So we're now going to go over to our architecture tab. We'll select our wall tool, and the wall we're going to be using today will be the external 102 brick, 50 cavity, 45 insulation, 100 block. The way in which we're going to be drawing it is by line. In our options bar, I want to use the height, as I want the walls to go above my level. I don't want it to go below. And I'm going to use the constraint of roof, and I can no longer change the height. My location line will be set to finish face interior. I want my walls to be drawn by chain with no offset, no radius, and I want my join status to be on and allow the joins. I'm now going to begin the floor plan. So here's my drawing view, and I'm going to come down to the bottom left, one click of the mouse, and I want to go to the right around my building. But when I do so, my plasterboard is on the outside of the building and I want it to be on the other side. If I go up, the plasterboard is now on the inside. I want to go around in an anti-clockwise motion to create my drawing. So what I do is I press the space bar once and it flips my wall to the other side. Now my plasterboard is inside my building. And my first dimension is 7,800. So I can either move my cursor till I get 7,800, or I can manually type it in. I'm then going to go up by 1375, enter, over by 800, enter, up by 1840, enter. And now coming over to the right hand side, I don't have to type in the dimension. I'm just going to look for that dashed blue line, meaning that the walls are now in line with each other. One click of the mouse. And then I'm going to go up by 2586, enter. And then stretching all the way over to the right, look for that dashed blue line and come down and close it off. And lastly, I'm going to come over to this right, over to the right, click on the edge of that wall, spanning all the way over, and click. So there's the basic footprint of our building. And what I'm going to do now is draw the internal walls using the partition wall. So we'll come over to our wall tool, type selector, and today we're going to be using the wall partition, 12 plasterboard, 70 mil metal stud, 12 mil plasterboard. We're going to be using the line tool to draw, our options set to height. Our top constraint will be the roof. Our location line is wall center line, chain, 0 offset, no radius. For this exercise, I'm going to just draw in the partitions, and then what we'll do is we'll come back and change the dimensions. So we're going to use a different method of how we can place the walls. So when we did the external walls, we drew them to the particular dimension, but this time I want you to place in the internal walls first, and then we'll come back and then adjust the position. So just repeat the same layout that I'm drawing on the screen. So I'm going to zoom in to the top, attaching to the top wall, draw straight down, press escape, click on the top, click, press escape, attach to this wall on the left, over to the right, click escape, and then draw two walls inside that, click escape, and as well over on the bottom left, click and escape. So now we've just randomly placed in those walls. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to give you the dimensions and show you that we don't always have to draw the walls to a specified dimension. We can just place the walls in, then we can come back and very easily maneuver those walls into the position that we want. So zooming into the top. So the first wall we're going to move is this wall here, and I want to use a temporary dimension that's attached to the internal face of this wall here, but the temporary dimension is over here, attached to this partition here. So what I need to do is grab the blue grip, drag it over to the internal face and let go. So now my temporary dimension is correct where I want it to be. It's showing a distance of 3345. If I click on that, I want that to read 3105 and enter. Next, I want to reposition this lower line, and I want it to be aligned with this wall here. And how I do that is select it, come to the modify panel, select align, and I want to align it to the face of this partition. So I'll click there. Then I get this dashed blue line, and then I hover over the face of this partition, and one click, it'll align the partition to the upper wall. So they're now aligned correctly. Then the wall over to the right of that, we want to reposition that over to the right, and we'll change that distance to 1000. Then over to the right of that is this wall here. I want to enter in the distance from the external wall to this partition, but I'm not being shown a temporary dimension for this position. But there's one here. So what I can do is I can click that blue grip, drag it over to the external wall, and then change the position to the external face of the partition. And now that I've done that, I can now change the distance to 3700. So all we're doing is we're just manipulating those temporary dimensions so we can enter in our distances correctly. And lastly is this wall here. There we have a temporary dimension from this face to here, and I want to change that to 1800. Then down the bottom we have this additional wall here, and the reason for this join is because that wall was placed using the wall center line as the location. So what we can do is we can delete this and redraw the wall using the finish face interior and align it to here. And we can also use the move tool and realign it like so. So there we have all of our external walls and internal walls placed. What we can do now is go to our east elevation, and there we have an elevation view of the east side. If our levels are overlapping, this isn't a problem. We just select it, use the grip, drag them back. Go into our north elevation, same again, just drag them back. South, that's fine. And our west. So I'm going to close down the west, south, north, and leave the east elevation open. And what I want you to do is open up our 3D view. So in our quick access panel, we have our 3D view. Click. And here's a view of what we've just created. So zoom in with the scroll wheel, pan by holding the wheel, and orbit is hold shift and scroll wheel. So we can go to our visual style, change over to realistic. And there we can see our layout which we've created. As I said before, when you're in realistic, as your computer is trying to process all of that information, it's going to sacrifice other information. So you can see that the labels, so our elevation labels, are not being displayed. That's because it's trying to work and create that image for you. Yes, it does look great, and if you could model like this all the time, it would be very nice. But we're working on a small project right now, and it's already trying to save itself and put all power into generating the realistic image for you. So when we go back to hidden lines, you see that the text reappears as the computer no longer has to generate that image. So just keep that in mind. And when we're modeling, it is always best to be using the hidden line, but you can see how quickly we can go between the two. So in our 3D view as well, you can see we have our levels are labeled as we've created them in the elevation view. So the same information is being displayed. The heights are being displayed as well. When we're modeling, we're able to have multiple views of our project on the screen at once, and I'm going to show you how we can do that now. So we go to the View tab, and we have a Windows panel. So first one there is Switch Windows. So if I choose Switch Windows, I can then choose what view I want to see. As well, we have that in the Quick Access panel as well. As well, we have Close Inactive Views. So if I select this, it's going to close all of the other inactive views. As my current view is ground level, if I choose Close Inactive, the other two will close. So I'm going to open back up the east elevation and the 3D view. That option is also in the Quick Access panel here. Next, we have tab views, which we're currently on. So our tab view shows our views in tab form at the top. And beside that, we have tile views. So it converts all of our tabs into tiles, which are all displayed at the same time. So if I toggle over to tile view, all of our views are displayed as tiles at once. And what we can do is we are able to toggle between these to change the view. So currently the east view is the active view. As you can see, it's black. The tab runs into the project, while over here they are gray and they don't run into the project. So if I select ground level, that's now the active view. So it's white into white. There we have gray into white. And what you do is you select tab view, and then it will toggle the views. So we can keep working that until we get the 3D view onto the right. Then we have our ground level on the left and our east elevation on the left. And what you'll notice is the view controls are at the bottom of every view. So for our 3D view, we could change that over to realistic. We can change our detail level to coarse, and it only affects that view. So we'll bring them back. We're also able to pick up these tabs and join them together. So my east elevation tab, I can pick it up and drop it into my ground floor. So I can have 3D on one side, I have my east elevation and my ground floor, my ground level on one side. And as well, if you have a second screen, you can click that tab, drag it off over onto your other screen, so you can have multiple views open at once. So you can have your 3D view on one screen and your plans on the other. You can also throw all of your specifications and schedules onto one screen, and you're modeling on one and reading your information on the other. We can also organize our tabs when we're in our tab view. So if I wanted my ground level at the beginning, just click, drag it over until it's at the start. So quickly go to my 3D view, and just to demonstrate the constraints again. So our roof is our top constraint at 3 meters. If we select that and change that to 4,000, we'll see all of the walls will move up with that level. So all the internal walls, the external walls, everything has moved up at the same time, which again saves us a lot of time to do that manually, as well it eliminates those errors. So we'll bring that back down to 3000. Other options we have with our wall tool, back in the architecture tab, we have a drop down menu. We have wall architecture, wall structural, wall by face. So we've been using the architectural walls. The structural walls will have analytical properties built into them, and they are just purely for our load-bearing structure, which we won't be covering for now. What I want to show you are what are called wall sweeps and wall reveals. So we'll select wall sweep. And when we do the contextual tab changes and our placement panel appears, we can either place these horizontally or vertically, and we can also restart it. In our type selector, we currently have one wall sweep, which is a cornice. So we'll use that. We'll come into the drawing. And when we hover over a wall, you'll see that my cursor is showing a warning right now because I'm hovering over nothing. When I hover over a wall, the cornice will appear. One click of the mouse will place it, and if it doesn't appear, you just either zoom or just pan around and it will regenerate the image and you'll see. So what I'll do is I'll change over to consistent color so we can see that better. So there is our cornice. So here we've placed our cornice. So this cornice itself is a basic profile. So now we'll just add in cornice around the building. So what we'll do is we'll come to the back. When we see that dashed line, we know it's aligned up. Orbit around and again place. We'll also feel that the mouse will kind of attach or lock into that position. And then we have placed our cornice. So yeah, the cornice itself is a very basic shape. It's just a square. What we're able to do is we're able to create and generate our own bespoke cornice. We won't do that at this stage as it is quite technical. So for this stage, we're going to keep it simple and I'll show you how we can place them, and later on we'll generate our own. So properties with the cornice. In the properties section, under the constraints, we can add in an offset. So I'll zoom in. There's our offset from wall. Add 500, and we'll see the cornice is now offset out from that wall by 500 mil. Bring it back to 0. Our level is set to the ground floor level and how much it's offset from that level. So if I change that to 2600, we'll see it moves up. Also under the dimensions heading, it shows the total length of that cornice. So this is a very useful tool for us that we don't have to actually measure the total length of that cornice. It'll automatically show us that information. And as well, we can add further information to that component. So just selecting the cornice again, we see there are little blue grips. What we can do is we can click and drag that away. So they don't have to be joined. We can adjust the position to how we wish. So if you had a window, you can apply the cornice just to the top of that and to the ones beside. So we have total freedom of how we can design those cornice. Next, we'll show a reveal. So same options as we have before. Again, we only have one reveal. And we'll place it the same as the cornice, but the difference between this is it will actually cut out the shape into the brickwork. And same as before, it has a little blue grip, so we can adjust the shape. So we have total freedom of being able to design the look of this building. Again, we're only presented with the basic forms. As I said before, we will go in and create bespoke profiles so we can change how these appear in the building. And when we select our reveal, we have the same option. So we can do an offset, shows the level, and offset from the ground, as well as the total length. Okay, coming back to the ground level. Another thing I would like to show you is called a clean wall tool. So in the modify tab under the geometry section, we have wall joins. So what we're able to do is we're able to adjust how the wall joins together. Save the project. So once active, we just hover over the join we want to change, one click of the mouse. Give you a better idea of the buildup of this wall, I'll change over to realistic. So there we have our brickwork, our cavity, our insulation, our blockwork, and the plasterboard. So if we don't want this join to automatically appear, we're able to change that by using the wall joins tool. So we'll change that back to hidden line. And in the modified tab, we have our wall join. And we get this square of where we need to put around that particular join. So one click of the mouse, and we see that the join has changed. So that the blockwork butts up against the other blockwork and it doesn't join. Same with the insulation, the brickwork, and the plasterboard. What we can do in the options bar is change the configuration. So if we choose next, the blockwork then goes to the top or the side. So we have the total choice of how we want them to butt against each other. If we change over to miter, we see that they come in at an angle, and this is how they join together. We can also choose square off. Next over we have display. So we have clean join, don't clean join, and use view settings. So we're currently on use view settings. If I choose don't clean join, we no longer have a clean join, meaning that the blockwork joins into the other blockwork and the insulation doesn't join to the other insulation as well as the brickwork. So if I come back to clean join, it'll show that nice clean join again. We can also change from allow join to disallow join. So those two walls are no longer joined together. So we can apply changes like that. And to join them back together, we select the wall. We turn on allow join by selecting the symbol. So they are now joined together, but the join still isn't clean. So we just drag the wall back, unjoin, drag the wall back, and then we drag it back into position. And we look for that dashed line, and we can drag that back into position as well. We could also use the trim and extend to do the same job. Other areas we can use that tool would be with the internal partitions. So there the metal stud won't connect to the other metal stud. We can also use a don't clean that join. So the metal stud goes to the plasterboard, not to the metal stud. And to undo this, we just click drag the grip out and then drop it back in, and it will create the clean join again.